shock claim by Michael Rubin. He claims that Greece should take back Izmir, meaning all this area here, the red part, and the Kurds should take back Kurdistan, which is half of the eastern part of Turkey. I don't know if he realizes what he just said, but in what he just stated today, he's basically putting forth the prophecy that was given in 1750s by Saint Cosmas of Aetolia and also the elder Saint Paisios. Kostis Alexiou reports, on the eve of the crucial U.S. election, with the Biden-Trump polarization peaking and the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East once again dividing the world into two opposing camps, the well-known American expert on Turkey, Iran, and the Middle East, Michael Rubin, he is an expert on Turkey, Iran, Middle East, Africa. He's a former official of the Pentagon. Michael Rubin causes an earthquake with his article in the Washington Examiner, dated May 16, 2024, which is republished in the American Enterprise Institute, an American think tank. The American specialist does not give away chestnuts this time, and he's trying to wake up American foreign policy in an unprecedented way, which seems to have become a subordinate of Turkey and Erdogan, defending not only the rights and territorial integrity of Cyprus, but the proposing also that Izmir be given back to Greece, as well as Kurdistan to the Kurds, together with the territory of southeastern Minora, that is Asia Minor, which he characterizes as being occupied by Turkey. Isn't that something? Without realizing it, he's basically putting forth suggestions as to what was prophesied 250 years ago. Michael Rubin notes that Erdogan of Turkey referenced to a revision of the Lausanne Treaty of 1923, which defined Turkey's borders should be translated into a concession of Smyrna to Greece, as foreseen, we note, by the previous Treaty of Lausanne, that of Sèvres of 1920. Michael Rubin states, when Erdogan talked about revisiting the 1923 Treaty of Lausanne, that defined the borders of modern Turkey, no Western official suggested that this could mean Turkey ceding land to allow the ethnically cleansed Greek community, together with the Armenians, to return. If Washington, Athens, and other European states had used the opportunity to demand the return of Izmir, Erdogan might have thought twice about aggression. Occupied by Cyprus, that is, occupied the island occupied of Cyprus, Rubin, an advocate of the East Med submarine pipeline, also talks about Cyprus, characterizing the northern part of it occupied by the Turkish army, thus underlining the obvious. Michael Rubin said the same applies to Turkey's support for the state in northern Cyprus, an area held by its army. The former Pentagon official, after severely criticizing Turkey and Erdogan for supporting the Islamic State and Hamas as a retaliation proposes recognizing the PKK as a legal representative of Turkish-occupied Kurdistan, as he says, even asking for treatment from the USA of the Kurds that the Turks injure. Such a thing, however, also implies liberation, hence the Delta Force of Kurdish leader Abdullah Öcalan, imprisoned for 25 years in Imrali, the Greek island of Kalolymnos. Michael Rubin says if Erdogan is going to declare Hamas a legitimate rebel group, why doesn't the State Department respond by declaring the Kurdish Workers' Party a legitimate organization? The United States could go further by offering PKK members and other Kurds injured by Turks drones and aircraft, free medical care in the U.S. Erdogan can moan and groan all he likes, but a stronger State Department could simply point the finger at Erdogan in the past he embraced. So you have to, I basically feel that Michael Rubin has a big pair of cojones, as they say, to come out clearly and state all this. The State Department, well, somebody had to say it. The State Department could begin by labeling not only northern Cyprus as occupied, but eastern Turkey as well. If Erdogan describes Hamas as a legitimate representative of the Palestinians, then the US should consider the PKK as the legitimate representatives of Turkish-occupied Kurdistan. This is the justice of St. Paisius and, of course, St. Cosmas of Aetolia of 1750s prophecy. All of the above, a foretaste of the subversive things that will follow, completely confirmed St. Paisius, who had said that Americans and English would take our side, giving us a city as well, just as Kurdistan will be created. And the pioneering article of the American specialist Michael Rubin shows that things are now moving in that direction, because God also has his plans. And the entire article of Rubin, the State Department will fail until it gives its enemies a taste of their own medicine, by Michael Rubin, Washington Examiner, May 16, 2024. Former Secretary Antony Blinken famously declared diplomacy is back, but he's confusing diplomacy with civility. Ukraine guitar jamming is already the moment. Michael Dukakis of Blinken dictators, and Blinken is a man around whom they can run circles, he said. During the Trump years, NATO allies paid. Today, they're sticking America with the bill again. Two-party dictators like Azerbaijan's Ilham Aliyev mock and belittle American diplomats without fear of consequence. Eritrea continues to imprison Eritrean U.S. Embassy employees. To harass American diplomats serving in Cuba, Cuban agents often do away with their family pets. Turkey provides an example of how coercion can trump consultation. Backbone matters, he says. This is Michael Rubin's article, by the way. There is no doubt that Turkey is troubled. After 2 decades of strongman rule by President Erdogan, Turkey has become a money laundering hub, the world's worst prison for journalists, a human rights black hole, and a sponsor of terrorism. Erdogan's Maroons attacked peaceful protesters not only in Ankara, but also Ankara, of course, is the capital of Turkey, but also in Washington. Erdogan blackmailed NATO and put the alliance at risk for ego and greed. Ukraine may be the free world's front lines of defense, but instead of standing firm for Kiev, Turkey is playing both sides. Turkey's sponsorship of terrorism is problematic. Erdogan may complain about U.S. cooperation with Syrian Kurds, but this alliance only came about because Turkey provided aid and sustenance to the Islamic State. More recently, Erdogan has sought to become Iran's equal in sponsoring Hamas. On May 13, Erdogan hosted Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis. After Mitsotakis referred to Hamas as a terrorist group, Erdogan reprimanded him. He said, "If you call Hamas a terrorist group, that would upset us," he said. "We do not consider Hamas a terrorist organization. More than 1,000 members of Hamas are being treated in hospitals across our country," Erdogan said. Leave aside the numerous permissive sanctions that Erdogan has passed. Diplomatically, Erdogan is an expert hypocrite. He has become so familiar with the weakness of the West that he no longer fears that Western counterparts will exploit the precedents he creates to the benefit of the West and Turkey's misfortune. When Erdogan spoke of revising the 2023 Treaty of Lausanne that defined the borders of modern Turkey, no Western official suggested that this could mean Turkey ceding land to allow the Greek community, which was ethnically cleansed along with the Armenians, to return. Had Washington, Athens, and other European states used the opportunity to demand the return of Izmir to Greece, Erdogan might have thought twice about aggression. The same is true of Turkey's support for the state in northern Cyprus, which Turkey invaded a NATO member, Turkey and Greece, NATO invading a NATO member, Greece and Cyprus. They basically took over half the island of Cyprus, and the NATO didn't do anything about it. Now, if Erdogan is going to declare Hamas a legitimate rebel group, why should not the State Department respond by declaring the Kurdistan Workers' Party a legitimate organization? The United States could go further by offering PKK members and other Kurds injured by Turkish drones and aircraft, free medical care in the US. Erdogan can moan and groan, but a stronger State Department can simply point the finger at Erdogan and the past he embraced. A more aggressive diplomatic stance, defined by extreme backbiting rather than begging and scoliosis, would pay dividends. The mere mention of related secondary duties in response to Erdogan's seizure of Pastor Andrew Brunson caused the Turkish dictator to back down in an attempt to make amends. Effective diplomacy requires the Secretary of State to be more pit bull and less golden retriever. His bite must be as bad as his bark. He should not be rolling on his back with his proverbial tail between his legs. It's time for a fundamental rethinking of American diplomacy. The State Department could begin by labeling not only northern Cyprus as occupied, but also eastern Turkey as well. If Erdogan describes Hamas as a legitimate representative of the Palestinians, then the US should consider the PKK as a legitimate representative of Turkish-occupied Kurdistan. Erdogan is long overdue for a dose of his own medicine. I care, he said. I agree with Michael Rubin's stance. Good for him, somebody had to say this. Obviously he knows about all this. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. I've translated this for you for a Greek article. Thank you. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.